Breaking news this morning, Senator Kyrsten Sinema registering as an Arizona independent. Sinema making a video announcement saying that she has declared her independence from the broken partisan system in Washington, changing her affiliation from Democrat to independent. Joining me right now is Florida Congressman-elect and combat veteran Cory Mills. Congressman-elect, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for being here this morning. First, give us your reaction to the Kyrsten Sinema news. I want to get into all of the breaking news of the morning, but this just happening, so let's start there.
Well, I think that it's something that we kind of already had seen was coming to fruition. I mean, we know that Kyrsten Sinema has not necessarily towed the line with all of the kind of social issues and the different things that the Democrat Party has been fighting for. I would actually think that this would have been a move made by Joe Manchin, if anything, to separate himself from the, abysmal kind of fossil fuel attacks and energy policies from the left and from the Biden administration. But I think this is a good sign that a lot of people are not wanting to follow this kind of perverse and America Last ideology, and that's the reason for their switch.
Yeah, she put this video out, and she certainly has pushed back on a lot of those issues that the Democrats are pushing, like socialism. Let me get your take on the bombshell from Twitter and the new Twitter files released overnight. Independent
Maria shot just
social media giant secretly blacklisted conservative tweets and users. Weiss highlighting the account of Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who was placed on a, quote, trends blacklist because he said that COVID lockdowns would harm children, which they did. Conservative commentator Charlie Kirk flagged as do not amplify in an attempt to limit his tweets from gaining too many retweets. Congressman-elect, I don't know if I'm on this list, but I certainly have been feeling over the last several years that I was also shadow banned. What about you?
Well, Maria, I can almost guarantee you were part of that list. And here's the thing that's troubling. It wasn't until Elon Musk has taken over that we've actually seen how much of this intentional conservative quiet and silencing that's been going on. The bigger question for me, though, is how has this impacted previous elections? How has this actually prevented, being someone who just came off the campaign trail, name ID and your ability to actually communicate with your constituency is a big deal. How much of this has now impacted these elections and how much of it is an influence? But further to that, Congress now needs to take a further step. We know that Jack Dorsey has purged himself, saying that these things were not going on. He can't act as if he has plausible deniability in this. So I would like to see where we levy this up and say, we're going to send this over for criminal prosecution with the DOJ because you did perjure yourself under oath, and we need to start taking real action, having accountability, and stop at cheap political rhetoric.
Well, it's interesting because in the middle of all of this data dump, the Twitter files, part 1 and part 2, we get a prisoner swap. OK, why now? Why are we getting a prisoner swap right now? Brittany Griner arriving in the United States this morning. President Biden agreed to a prisoner swap, allowing the release of the merchant of death, arms dealer Victor Bout. OK, so Russia is in the middle of a war on Ukraine. They are creating death and destruction every single day. And what does the White House do? They release the leading arms dealer back to Russia in the middle of all of this news about Twitter. Why? So I have lots of questions here. Why the prisoner swap right now? Are we supposed to divert our attention to this now and not talk about all the bad behavior of the Democrats? Or the other question is, why did we leave Paul Whelan back and left him behind? He is a Marine. He's been there 40 years. Your thoughts on all of this?
Well, a lot to unpack here. I mean, first off, yes, I absolutely think this is a red herring.
He's been there 4 years.
That's correct.
Paul Whelan, just let me say, he's been there 4 years behind bars in a Russian prison. She was there 10 months. How does these decisions happen?
Well, again, it's a red herring politically to try and go ahead and pull away from the Twitter files, yes. But the secondary thing is that this is the Joe Biden administration prioritizing celebrities over military veterans. I mean, let's look at the fact that she's not the only one who was prosecuted under cannabis oils. You also had Mark Fogel, who my colleague, Representative Guy Reschenthaler from Pennsylvania, has been fighting for, has been arrested since 2021 for medical marijuana. He's a 35-year educator. We have Paul Whelan, the Marine, who was given some trumped-up charges on espionage. I mean, the whole point was that we should have been in charge of this negotiation from the very beginning. But what scares me, Maria, is the dangerous precedence that this now sets. What have we now done for the American value? So if any tyrannical or dictatorship-type rulers out there and he wants to not have certain levies or certain sanctions or certain things that he wants to go his way, now what? Do we imprison, wrongfully Americans so that we can go ahead and utilize them as negotiating tools? Should they be bargaining chips now? So I think this endangers a lot of Americans abroad whenever we're actually not in control of the negotiations and we're not getting what we should have gotten, which is all the Americans released, especially for someone who is known as the Merchant of Death, who's responsible for tens of thousands of genocidal, murders that went on in Africa.
Yeah, I mean, Dagan McDowell, I know that any American held in a foreign country coming home is good news. And I pray to God, thanking God that she is back on U.S. soil and free. But I wonder if she's going to think twice the next time she pushes back on having the national anthem sung during a WNBA game.
America is pretty great, isn't it? The freedoms here, not being held in a penal colony on trumped-up charges. To the Congressman-elect, keep talking about that, though. Since this government doesn't really have the back of Americans, what do you tell Americans traveling abroad to other countries where their freedom might be at risk, where they might be used as a pawn by not a Putin, but another dictator? What do you tell them?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that we need to be explaining that certain nations, if there's political tension that's going on, there's potential trade embargoes that are being levied, to have a heightened sense of things, to make sure they have contact with the U.S. embassies at all times. I think that, again, the precedence this sets what concerns me the most. And Maria, I think what you were getting to, and I completely agree with you, is that you've got a man who served our nation proudly, who is being held and wasn't important enough to basically be part of this exchange, but a woman who would take a knee and wouldn't even honor our national anthem was the priority here. And I think that we know why. This is, once again, just like with the Afghan failed withdrawal, this is political optics over true strategy. And I think that what they're doing is they're going to parade Brittany around. And again, I'm very thankful she's home. I'm thankful for every American that's released. But they're going to parade her around and utilize this for political optics to bury all the negative things and all the failed policies that they're basically, fully in hand with.
That's right. Look over here, not over there. Congressman, it's good to see you. Congressman-elect, we look forward to your leadership in the 118th Congress beginning next year. Thank you, Cory Mills, joining us this morning in New York. All right, we'll see you soon, Cory. Quick break. And then